And you are live on TCTV Channel 8 and YouTube.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I'm Wilfred Spring, Senior Member of the Advisory Committee. I'm calling the meeting to order. If you please join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
of the United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation, under
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you see, I have meeting issues that I want to take an in-depth going through, so we set some history as to how we got to the point we are today. Just so everybody is aware, and I know some of you already know this, but if you just give me a moment to go through. At the end of town meeting, the chairman and the scribe both had resigned effective at the end of town meeting. In addition to that, the vice chair, whose term had expired at the end of town meeting, chose not to take an end up getting reappointed. In addition to that, we had 3 other members that their terms expired at the end of town meeting. At the end of town meeting, 2 of those members did get reappointed. It's Bev Bartolomeo and Bob May. I was the only one left actually after the annual town meeting until they got sworn in. At that particular moment in time, we did not have enough people to take and end up having the advisory committee operate because we didn't have a quorum of 4. I think it was either 3 or 4 days later, Faith got appointed and sworn in the following week. Since that time, we've had Matthew, who came forward after the annual town meeting, put his paperwork in. He did get appointed by the new moderator and sworn in as of yesterday. And thank you, Matt, for responding so and taking in and being so quick on responding to that. Here's some issues that I ran into. Because nothing was handed down from the past officers to anybody at the annual town meeting, I took it and talked to the administrator about things that we needed to take and at least operate if we got enough members. One of those was access to the emails to see if any emails are coming in. We ran into that. There's an issue with receiving emails, as our TCT member has informed me. He tried to take and end up sending the invitations to it and was not getting through for some reason. The administrator is aware of that. In addition to that, in order for us to have meetings, we have to put agendas up. We didn't have access to my town government. I had to take and end up working with the TA, the town clerk, and also with Holly to get access to the email and also to my town government just to get the agenda up. The agenda has some items on it, which at the time that it was done, in checking with the town clerk, the new moderator had not been sworn in, and I went, we can't operate if he waits too long to get sworn in. We're not going to take and end up being operated and get our new member on Matt. So in working with him, that issue was cleared up. There was a number of other documentation that was not passed down or I could not find. I had to get resignation letters from, or we're requesting that from the town clerk because we didn't have all that documentation in the email. And a lot of the stuff that we put in to the accountant to take and end up that has already been paid. I've already asked Adam to take and talk to the accountant to end up getting that stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that has happened. And we also had a change in the advisory bylaw, and we'll get into that later. I can end up discussing that. So the first order of business after that, I think that's covered enough as far as meeting issues. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, but those are the major points. So we need to take and appoint a chairman and a scribe for the committee until we reorganize the latter part of June. And the reason we always do that at the latter part of June is to give the opportunity for people to apply for to get onto the committee. That way if they've, like Matt, he just got on, let him understand how we operate, get a little touchy-feely. I know Faith has been on before. She has a sense of how that, and the other two members have been on multiple times, so that worked out. So when we end up putting somebody on temporarily, the process is the same as when we would end up having the reorganization election. You don't need to take and end up seconding somebody's name to take and end up having either the chair or the scribe. So I'll open that up to for having somebody appointed to the chairmanship.
Mr. Senior Member, I would nominate Will Spring as the chairman through the organization meeting in June.
Second.
Let me just say this, gentlemen. Thank you for that vote of confidence per se. Just so that some of you, I know that some of you were aware, I have had health issues that I had to step down in 17. I still have some, and you're going to end up seeing me if we have something come up this evening. If that's what's going to happen this evening, I will have to rely on other members to help me out. As you saw, there was a lot of stuff that I forwarded to you. It takes quite a bit of time, and I can't guarantee that I'm always going to feel up to taking in and living up to the chairmanship. Is there anybody else that wants to step up for chairman? Matt, do you have somebody else that?
I was raising my hand to say that if somebody wanted to appoint me through the June, I would take it as I would serve as chairman through the June reorganization meeting.
I would motion to appoint Matt as the temporary chairman until the end of June.
Anybody else wants to be appointed chair? Okay, so I'll do a roll call, and the roll call will be that you will then end up voting for either one of the two people that were brought forth. Okay, is that understood by everybody? Okay, thank you. Bev?
I'll vote for Matt, and I assume that he'll get help from Will when he needs it.
Absolutely. Bob?
I'll vote for Matt.
Faith?
I vote for Matt.
Matt?
I vote for you, Will, out of respect for what you've done so far.
Thank you. And I'll vote for Matt.
Mr. Chairman. Or, yeah. Okay, now.
Matt, do you want me to hand this over to you now, or you want to
If you want, Will, I will take over now. Yes.
Yeah, because we need to get somebody for Scribe.
Okay. At this time, I will accept nominations on the floor for the position of Scribe of the Advisory Committee.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. May.
I would nominate Faith as Scribe.
Okay, I have a nomination for Faith. Do I have any other nominations on the floor?
I'll second that.
You don't need to second it, Bev.
Okay, that's all right. I'm used to it.
Do I have any other nominations on the floor? Hearing none, I'll go through a roll call vote to nominate Faith to, first of all, Faith, do you accept that nomination?
Yes.
I'll go through a roll call vote. Obviously, a yes vote is to complete the nomination for Faith as the Scribe. Mr. May.
Yes.
Mr. Spring.
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo.
Yes.
Ms. Curcio.
Yes.
And I apologize if I butchered that. And I am a yes. So Faith Curcio, did I get that right?
It's Curcio. It's okay.
Curcio, thank you. Faith Curcio is named the Scribe of the Advisory Committee until the reorganization meeting in June at 6:41 p.m. today. All right. Next item on the agenda that Mr. Spring put forward is the action to appoint new member per bylaw, section 9.3 vacancies. Will, do you want to go through your action or your item at this point?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to take and end up passing over this because it was already taken care of by the moderator by his appointment of you and you're being sworn in.
Okay. In that case, I believe I will accept a motion very quickly. That would be a motion to table.
I'll second that.
I need somebody to make the motion.
I'll make the motion.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Mr. Spring, seconded by Ms. Bartolomeo to table item 5 on the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote. Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Spring?
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo?
Yes.
Ms. Curcio?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Item 5 on the agenda is tabled. Item 6 on the agenda is to discuss and vote on the meeting minutes that we have in front of us. We have 6 weeks, March 4th, March 18th, April 1st, April 6th, April 15th, and April 29th.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, you have an action before that. It's item 6, discuss and vote on meeting minutes if not present at meeting.
Oh, my apologies. You're absolutely right. I did miss that. Okay. In that case, discuss and vote on meeting minutes if not present at the meeting. Go ahead, Will. Do you want to give background on that?
Yeah, I know I sent this out to everyone. It's not necessary to do this under either parliamentary or Robert's rules, and that's basically we try to adhere to those to somewhat as far as that goes. So it's I did this because of the fact that we ended up having new members being put on. I didn't know how that would work if we ended up being unable to end up having enough people as an agenda and having just 2 members. They would have to, under how we processed it before, they would abstain. But I wanted to pass this by everybody, have discussion as to how we're going to move forward with this. If somebody is not there, and as you saw, you can end up, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have been at the thing, but you can end up voting to accept the meetings or any additions or deletions from the documentation I sent.
So I'm going to put my thought in on this, and that is that from these advisory committee meeting minutes that we have 6 of them that we have to approve. Of the 7 members who were on the committee previously, 3 still remain. And I would hope that of those three that we would be able to, if there are any errors or omissions in the minutes, we should be able to go through them. And I would hope that at that point, the committee members who are not there to be present for those meeting minutes will take the word of the people who were there and will vote to accept those as presented or as amended if necessary.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put a motion so that we can end up addressing this even for the future meetings, is to end up having us to take and end up, if you have missed a meeting, to still be able to vote on this. I'll put that as a motion and forego the process that we previously used.
I have a motion on the floor to allow voting on meeting minutes, even if you were not present for said meeting.
I'll second that.
I have a second. Thank you, Mr. Spring and Ms. Bartolomeo. Do I have any discussion on said motion? Hearing no discussion on said motion, we will go to a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio,
Yes.
and I am a yes. That is a unanimous vote at 6:46 p.m. Now, we will go to the approval of the meeting minutes for the 6 weeks that we have in hand: March 4th, March 18th, April 1st, April 6th, April 15th, and April 29th. Let's start at the beginning. I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for March 4th.
So moved.
So moved
Second.
and seconded. Do we have any discussion on the meeting minutes from March 4th, 2021 as presented in the packet that was sent out by Mr. Spring?
I didn't see anything.
Looks good to me.
Looks good to me.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, let's take this to a roll call vote. A yes vote is to accept. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio,
Yes.
and I am a yes. The minutes from March 4th, 2021 are accepted into the record. I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 18th.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from March 18th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes from March 18th, 2021. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Don't see anything wrong.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Nope.
Hearing no discussion on the motion, we go to a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio,
Yes.
and I am a yes. The minutes from March 18th are unanimously accepted into the record. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes from April 1st.
So moved.
I'll
Second.
second the motion. All right, one of us will.
I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes from April 1st. Is there any discussion on said motion? Is there any discussion on said motion? Hearing no discussion, we move to a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio, Ms. Curcio, I apologize.
It's okay.
I'm going to get that right by the end of the night. And I am a yes. The minutes from April 1st, 2021 are accepted into the record as of 6:49 p.m. I'll entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes from April 6th, 2021.
So moved.
Seconded.
I have a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes from April 6th, 2021. Is there any discussion on said motion? Is there any discussion on said motion?
Oh, I guess we're good.
Okay. Hearing no discussion, we go to a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio,
yes,
and I am a yes. The minutes from April 6th, 2021 are accepted into the record as of 6:50 p.m. I'll entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes from April 15th.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to entertain the meeting minutes from April 15th, 2021. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I move to a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio,
yes,
and I am a yes. The minutes from April 15th, 2021 are accepted into the record as of 6:50 p.m. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes from April 29th, 2021.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
second,
I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes from April 29th, 2021. Is there any discussion on said motion?
I'd like to just clarify the fact that it shows the advisory recommendations for town meeting, and that's the only minutes we have per se. And I took that as meeting minutes since the Scribe did not end up putting forth anything else.
So recognized.
Yeah.
Mr. Spring, that was the entire discussion of that meeting as well, I assume, correct? Because that was the pre-town meeting.
Yes, that was the pre-town meeting, and that was the results of our discussions and the votes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion to accept the minutes from April 29th? Okay. Hearing none, we go to a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio,
yes,
and I am a yes. The minutes from April 29th, 2021 are accepted into the record at 6:52 p.m. Next item on today's agenda, action on invoice payment for the pre-town meeting notice in the Gardner News as was presented in your packets by Mr. Spring. I, at this point, will entertain a motion to pay the invoice as presented.
I'll make
So
a motion.
moved.
All right, go ahead, Nancy.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to pay the invoice for the pre-town meeting notice in the Gardner News as presented by Mr. Spring. Is there any discussion on said motion?
On this particular thing, there is a document that have asked the administrator that has to be supplied by the accountant that goes along with the invoice, and we can address that once we receive that, and I'll be happy to help you, Mr. Chairman, or we can end up working on that jointly if
Yep.
you so wish.
Excellent. I accept that. I appreciate that, Mr. Spring. We will we'll definitely work on that jointly to get that taken care of. Is there any other discussion on said motion? Hearing none, let's take to a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio,
yes,
and I am a yes. The motion to pay the invoice as presented by Mr. Spring passes unanimously at 6:53 p.m. Next item, item 9 on the agenda, discuss member and membership issues and advisory committee bylaw, Article 1, Advisory Committee, Section 1-6. Mr. Spring.
Yes, as you heard me say earlier, that in the annual town meeting of 2020, the changes to the bylaw were put in. Let me point out some things that, and I think I believe I sent forth the mail that was received by the town clerk concerning that, as it was received from the Attorney General's office with some notations. Some points that I want to take and end up making on this is the changes were in bold italics with strikeouts. If you look on the actual website and I've talked to the administrator concerning this. The old bylaw is still there with a notation above it. I told them that that was not acceptable as far as townspeople because they would get confused. They wouldn't necessarily look at that. And just going through the changes to the bylaw, let me point out a couple of things that I had issues with previously, and they still are. When we did put it in, there was in section 9.4, it actually said on April 8th. Well, what was put forward at the annual town meeting was April 10th. I have a copy of that as far as what we had put in, and I think that's incorrect. I don't know if the other members want to change it to the 8th or not. That's something that we can end up addressing at some point in the future. In addition to that, it also addresses the fact on how the new report for the annual town meeting has to be done. That was done incorrectly this last year because it ended up not showing the date of appointments, termination, etc. Expenditures of money wasn't broken down. Emergency fund wasn't broken down in the transfers and other business. It was not contained in the report that was submitted, and I was the member on the committee at that time that it was brought forth and presented or sent off. The rest of the members who aren't here now did not have any problems with. I did have some questions on that. In addition, as you also see in section, let's see, it's 5. I want to make sure that the section is correct. Yes, it would be section 9.3 on vacancies. This was basically a compromise because the old bylaw said that after the annual town meeting, the advisory committee could end up appointing members. Some of the members felt that the moderator should have been given an opportunity to fill the vacancies, and if he's and the as far as the ability to do that, if he was unable to fill the vacancies for whatever reason, that could be that he didn't have anybody, he didn't want to, whatever. That the advisory committee still had the opportunity to end up filling the vacancies. Maybe we had to go out like we have done in the past because it's taken a month or two, and after the 30 days, we could end up doing that. So those are some major points. The other thing is it still contains the fact that it would be seven registered voters of the town that can be on. And as you can see that there was some strikeouts, etc. in that. I don't know if anybody else wants to talk about it, but those are some of the major points that I saw going forth. And also the latter part about the committee could appoint liaisons to either boards or standing committees to attend their meeting of the various entities of the town and school district, and delegate to them the power as it deemed expedient to take and end up working with them. I'm sure that whoever those liaisons would be would end up putting forth the after some discussion would put forth those things that the advisory committee would like to take and end up bringing forth to any of those, or in the case of liaisons, and most times the liaison would sit at these meetings, especially if there was monies involved, whether it be in the transfers, discussions of budgets that were coming forth for the coming year. And as you can see that the secretary or the scribe would end up putting forth the report to anybody that requested it. It has to go to the administrative assistant for the town to be put in. The other thing I think that need to take and point out is I'm going back here, and is if a member resigns for any reason or a member is absent for 5 consecutive meetings of the advisory, except in the case of illness, and that's one of the reasons that was put in there, well, years ago, because if somebody became ill, they weren't deemed to have vacated the position. The advisory committee notifies the moderator to determine if there's an interested registered voter to fill the vacancies, and he's given 30 days. So those are the major points. I don't know if anybody else wants to bring forth anything, whether we want to take and have a discussions set forth later on to address that. But there was, like I said, it was an oversight maybe by not putting the updated one on the town bylaw site. So that was brought forth, and I think Mr. May actually addressed that in some emails that he had sent to the town administrator, and we got sent that document.
If I might, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if I might. I can't hear you on mute.
I apologize. I apologize. I was on mute. Go ahead.
That's
Mr. Mayor.
okay. I could see your mouth moving, but nothing was coming out. Yeah, I did write the administration regarding this issue, specifically with 9-2. 9-3, sorry, 9-3. Because it was very relevant to keeping, in my eyes, to keeping the advisory committee alive. Because as the law was written and as it is now still presently posted on the website, after town meeting, without a quorum, we would have had no means to appoint anybody.
Right.
And I personally, I wrote this letter based off the bylaw. I've searched these bylaws, read most of them back and forth. And, you know, I've never looked under the new laws for updates to what's in front of me. I've looked under the notes, but I never looked under the new laws because lo and behold, I thought those would be posted. But, you know, this type of thing is a result, like you were all at the meeting last night except for Faith, but the DOR in the meeting, we were talking, you know, about this very issue, or at least, you know, in part. The advisory committee's bylaws and rules have been picked on and picked apart at every town meeting that I can think of since 2017 or so.
That's correct.
To the point that we can't even update them fast enough on the website. And so we're constantly seemingly giving out poor information, all while trying to change it. It just seems like the wrong thing to be doing, and not to benefit anybody. So yeah, I think, you know, the one thing with this that needs to be addressed is that the bylaws need updating. Let's say within the year they're voted on. You know, it'd be nice. Because, you know, if I mean, this is going to sound arrogant as hell, but if I can't find out the right information on the town's website, the average taxpayer who visits it a couple times a year has no chance. So that's it for me.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. May. Thank you, Mr. Spring. Does anyone else have any other comments with regards to this? I
Mr. Chairman.
personally agree that this, when I initially looked at this bylaw, I got the old version, and it's not clear in the website where the amended bylaw that was voted on in town meeting 2020 is. So I 100% agree with you both in that respect, and that the town does need to make a good faith effort to update the bylaws in a, I'll say in an expedient fashion. I mean, I think that you're more than reasonable in saying within the year that the bylaw was voted on. And at this point, this particular bylaw being voted in 2020 is over a year old, and the actual text of the bylaw online has not been updated yet. Go ahead, Mr. Spring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you saw, the dated was in August. I would have thought from August to December, as you pointed out, that change could have been made.
Yep.
Another thing that I want to point out for the two new members is that there was a codification of all bylaws.
Yeah.
And that's, let me just say, I want to think and be kind too. I don't think that went well. There is still some issues with other bylaws, etc., that were overlooked and taken off the books for whatever reason. And that's an issue. I mean, those other bylaws that we had on the books that were dropped were done for a particular reason, and I can't speak to why they were taken off. But I mean, I want to make sure that everybody knew there was codification on this. And like I said, we have the opportunity from now until sometime before the special town meeting in the fall, if we so decide to have additional discussions on this and make some changes, whether they be minor or major, but that's really up to us and to be put forward. I think that needs to be addressed at least once it gets put on as it was presented and written up correctly. Because if you look at the note above, and I have that, if you read it, there's the old bylaw and the italicized changes with no crossouts, and it just, if somebody put on that, because I when I saw Mr. May's thing go out, I started looking and saying, that's I saw the old bylaw and that's correct, and I started digging into it. That's when I found the note above the old bylaw for a couple of bylaws, and I went, that's not. And like I said, I mentioned that to the administrator, and I guess he is bringing forth to the town clerk, or has or will be.
Mr. Rebad,
Go ahead.
you know, I have town reports going back to the 30s.
Mhm.
And these little old ladies used a typewriter and they could get things right. There's absolutely no excuse for our website to be a mess. Jeffrey and Bob have shoveled stuff constantly to get it updated and get it straightened out, so that if you turn on our website today, I think you're going to see something about the election, which was weeks ago.
Right.
So, you know, due diligence. We're paying people to do a job. They need to do the job. And if I'm a taxpayer and I need to find information, I shouldn't have to dig to China to find it.
Right.
You know?
Mhm.
Will did good. He dug deep, and he you know, because we had a real problem that we had to straighten out.
Mhm.
I think that a good functioning advisory board is the most valuable thing the taxpayers in this town have. We are not a threat. We can work with people, but it goes both ways. And, you know, picking apart the advisory board, when you when you make changes in any kind of government bylaws or any of that stuff, you always have results that you're not looking at. It's kind of like I was talking to Bennett. It says it's like putting they put those animals in Quabbin, the fisher cats, to kill the porcupines because they had so many porcupines. Well, gee whiz, they didn't stay there, you know? So when they made changes, changing our election date, I did not think was a smart idea because it screws up the flow of things. They did stuff for 250 years. There's a reason they did it. And sometimes people have ulterior motives and their motives aren't really good and it hurts everybody. That's my thought.
So I've pulled up the town bylaws on the on ecode360.com, and it does note here that they only include legislation adopted through January 15th, 2020, which means there's legislation that's been adopted for over a year and almost a half that hasn't been codified into the bylaws on the website. It's just listed under the new laws section, and in this being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items from the annual town meeting last year, June 17th, and 1 item from the special town meeting, which is the fall town meeting, I'm assuming, on October 26th, 2020. I would think at this point, a discussion with the town administrator would be worthy. And maybe we can have the town administrator visit us in our next meeting, in one of our next 2 meetings, to discuss these, because I agree these should be updated more regularly certainly than every 18 months, which is where we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
So let me with the help of Mr. Spring, reach out to the town administrator, Mr. Lamontagne, and see if he can come to this meeting and discuss this item with us, be that either technically, I believe we'd be scheduled for next week or in 2 weeks following that. Because if I remember correctly, this meeting is actually postponed from last week, which would have been the 3rd week of the month. So is that agreeable to the membership at this point?
If I can, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I've already spoken, and it would probably behoove us to talk to the administrator again, because there was some questions that he had about codification and the ongoing process of having those updated also, because I believe some money has been expended to take and end up making that happen. And if it isn't, that needs to take and be addressed. And you're absolutely right.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to invite Mr. Lamontagne to one of our next 2 meetings, be it next week on June 3rd or the following 2 weeks later on June 17th, to discuss codification of bylaws on the town website and updating that website.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the administrator is on vacation next week, so he will not be able to attend next week, but I believe that he can attend the meeting on the 17th, I believe.
Then I'll edit my motion to state the meeting of June 17th.
And I will
So
edit my
moved.
second.
I have a motion and a second to on the motion to invite the town administrator to the meeting of June 17th for the purpose of discussing codification of bylaws on the website. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, we go to a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Motion passes at 7:14 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that you'll be taking that action item.
Yes, I will reach out to the town administrator.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, let's go to item 10 on the agenda. Review and discuss opening town hall on June 1st and rescinding COVID requirements and the impact that will have on meetings, etc. Again, Mr. Spring, you put this on as it's very clearly known at this point. State of Massachusetts will be rescinding all of its COVID restrictions and orders, with a couple of exceptions being for public transportation and such, but those wouldn't apply here. Those are all being lifted as of Saturday, May 29th, and as such, Templeton Town Hall is going to open with necessary COVID restrictions in place as of Tuesday, June 1st. Obviously, this meeting has been held, this and other town boards and committees and select board and such have been held via Zoom for the past year and pushing 3 months. Mr. Spring, you can give a little more background, but you're absolutely right. We need to discuss how we're going to continue to have meetings going forward. I know that from watching select board last night, I know that it sounds like they're going to be in person in town hall, but they're going to be allowing Zoom for anyone to come into the meeting to discuss what their topics are, and they're also going to still continue to have the YouTube feed for purpose of chat and such. But Mr. Spring, if you would like to please bring forward your topic on this, and we'll move from there.
Okay. Let me just say this. When I saw this, you saw the information is about the open town meeting. There's also a second part of this, and I believe I forwarded it. It was from the MMA to address the fact that on the 15th of this coming month, the actual law as far as continuing open meeting law and being able to do it by Zoom would continue up to that date, unless the governing body in the state voted to take and extend that. I have heard some discussion in discussion with the TA that there has been some discussion and maybe extending that to sometime in September. I don't know if that's going to happen, but the MMA indicated that we should end up notifying our representatives, both state and our representative for the Senate, as well as the representative, with our feelings as to continuing that with some time. I know that there is some reluctance by members to end up attending so quickly in a setting such as that. I know that the TCTV individuals have looked at if the law was not extended past the June 15th, that we could end up having some level of mixed meeting where you would need a quorum at the site for you'd still have to go to the town hall into the meeting room and have a quorum there, and somebody could end up attending remotely, so that there's some possibilities of doing that going forward. So I'll make a motion to end up having us sent a mail to Mrs. Goby and Mrs. Whips from Athol, to end up having them have that carried forward, so that we can end up having some Zoom meetings going a little bit longer into the year.
Can I say something?
Go right
Matthew?
ahead. Yep.
I talked to Mr. Bennett today. We discussed this, and we could have them if it doesn't, they don't extend it. We could have a meeting in town hall, and Faith has got a special circumstance. She could attend the meeting by Zoom.
Mhm.
So that would work for her. She wouldn't have to worry about, I told you I'd take care of you.
Awesome. That was my question, because
Yeah.
my husband's schedule's all over the place and I have a disabled daughter.
Yeah,
So
if
I
it's-
can be here from home anytime that I need to.
Yep.
But being in
Yeah.
the town office is kind of hard.
No, I wouldn't ask you to do that.
My personal 2 cents is it doesn't bother. It is, I have no preference either way. So I mean, I will I'm more than happy to go with the membership's will on this one, as long as we are within the tenets of the law.
Yeah.
So I have no issue either way with this. I admit the convenience of Zoom is
Yeah, nice.
excellent. But as far as whether or not we hold it on Zoom or hold it in town hall or hold some sort of hybrid based on what the law will allow, I am open to whatever the membership wants to do in that respect.
I think we're all good with that.
Just so that you are aware, Mr. Chairman, and also Faith, I knew that was a consideration for you, Faith, moving forward, and I wanted to take it in depth. That's why I wanted to address it this evening and have some level of discussion. That's why I put forward the motion to send emails to both of the Senate and the representative for the state to let them know our feelings per se, but that we also had another option. The town has voted for the ability to have remote participation, so that even if it did not go past the 15th, we still could end up having, as long as we had a quorum at the site at the town hall meeting room, we could still have a member, at least one member or two members or whatever, as long as we had a quorum, that we could end up having the meeting and it would make the letter of the law. But we can't, the individual from remote would not count as part of the quorum, so that you have to be very careful. You have to have the quorum on site. So this has happened in the past where we've had to address that, and we did have a quorum, but we had somebody remote participation, and we were able to handle that a number of years ago.
And the difficult part with quorum right now is going to be that because we only have 5 sitting members and quorum is 4, that means 4 out of the 5 of us would have to be sitting in town hall. So that's going to be the only difficult part right now until we can fill the other 2 seats on the board. But I also, I apologize. One other comment that I want to make too, though, is that I firmly believe that the technology that we've been using over the last year and a half is greatly improving the ability for people to participate in town government. And Faith's circumstance being one of the biggest reasons that it's been helpful, because it's allowing people who may not otherwise have been able to get to town hall for a specific time in a meeting to participate from their homes. I think it's a very important thing that we continue using this technology for those reasons, because I think that it's helping to bring people into the town government and into town meetings and such that may not necessarily have been able to participate previously. So I think it's a very important thing that the town is allowing, or is hopefully moving to allow the use of technology for a mixed meeting like this. And I think that it's very important that we also petition our legislative personnel, our elected legislators, to have this extended, because I mean, let's face it, this is the way the future is going to be. This and the COVID pandemic gave us a forced use of it, and people, and not just town government, but companies and everything else, are finding that it's just as effective. So, and like in some circumstances, it's actually more effective, and it's bringing more people into the process. At this point,
Mr. Chairman, if I could
go ahead, Mr. Spring, and actually, Ms. Bartolomeo, you were actually first, and then Mr. Spring will come back to you.
Okay.
No, I keep saying that if it wasn't for TCTV, this town would be behind the 8 ball real bad. Done a wonderful, wonderful job. And it will work out one way or the other.
I agree, and I also agree, and I applaud TCTV's work over the course of the pandemic to incorporate the technology into their broadcasts so that more people can participate. Mr. Spring, you were next.
Yes, just so that everybody on the meeting is aware, there's I know that a couple other members have reached out, as well as myself, to other folks, and it appears that out of the the 4 people we reached out to, we have a possibility of getting maybe at least one more member
Good.
here sometime before we reorganize.
Excellent.
Mr.
Excellent.
Chair, if I might.
Mr. May, go ahead.
I just wanted to concur with the statements that both you and Mr. Spring and the other members have made here. That I think this platform has value. And I personally myself find it very convenient to the point of I think we should have, I'm really a fan of the mix because I think certain meetings could use, let's say, the public room, the public input, but many of the meetings that don't get public input or any kind of, let's say, audience participation, this platform works beautifully.
Yep.
And it, like you said, it opens up the ability for so many more people to participate. Yeah, it can be a little sticky with the comments from the outside and all those things, but those are bugs that will get refined. And they have just over the course of the pandemic in a lot of ways. But I fully support sending a letter to Senator Goby and Representative Whips and utilizing this platform as much as we can to our benefit where we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. May. And actually, at this point, I think we've heard from everyone, and I think we have consensus. But the one thing we don't have on the table right now is a motion. So,
Mr. Chairman, I didn't make it as a motion.
oh, you did make it?
Yes, to end up sending an email.
Mr. Chairman, you have TCTV who's had their hand up for a little while.
Oh, thank you. TCTV, go ahead.
I just want to let you all know that Zoom is a part of our plans moving forward.
Good.
So you shouldn't have to be concerned about that.
Excellent.
The quorum issue is obviously up to the state, and we're waiting on word of that. There is a feeling that it could be relaxed until at least September. We don't know. The worst case scenario, as we see it, is that some members will be able to participate by Zoom, but you may have to get the quorum in the town hall conference room, as well stated.
Physical 4 people.
So it is in our plans moving forward, no matter what.
Excellent.
Thank you, Steve.
You are
Thank
a
you.
prince.
So I believe we did, Mr. Spring, you did make a motion on the floor to send a letter to our representatives and senators at Massachusetts government to have this, these pandemic, the pandemic rules for public meetings like this extended, if not made permanent. Did I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion on said motion? Hearing no further discussion, we'll go for a roll call vote. Mr. May.
Yes.
Mr. Spring.
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo.
Yes.
Ms. Curcio.
Yes.
And I am a yes. The motion passes at 7:28 p.m. to send a letter to our representatives and senators asking them to extend the meeting rules under pandemic circumstances. Ms. Curcio, could I ask you to draft that letter, and then we will, I'll sign as the committee chairman?
Sure.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda. Item 11, review and discuss the budget versus actual for April 2021 as presented by Mr. Spring in the meeting packets.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Spring.
Correct. That's item 12 that you're talking about. The item 11 is DOR presentation that happened last night.
I don't have DO. Hang on a second. Let me look at the.
Yes.
Okay. I apologize. The agenda that I had in email is different from the agenda that's on the YouTube and TCTV. You are correct. Item 11 is the DOR presentation from last night. Mr. Spring, do you want to begin? Or does anyone have any comments that they want to make on the DOR presentation from last night? I know, Faith, you were not able to attend, but I believe the rest of us were all in the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take and defer to Mr. May since he brought up quite a few good points so that we're all aware of those issues.
Mr. May, would you like to go ahead?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that was my dream. No, but there were a few concerns, let's just say, I think the report in a lot of ways follows the old line of garbage in, garbage out. Because it seems like the way the Department of Revenue does the report, it's set up to get a pretty biased opinion or a pretty biased result because it's so limited in its resource. They went through and made suggestions about cutting the advisory committee based on talking to a member at the time who had been on for 6 months, and apparently didn't have a clear recollection of the history. And having some history in town, you can also see that in that acknowledgement, you can pretty much put the paragraphs with the players, knowing the history. So it was, let's say, a futile exercise for me. It didn't seem to have any value or a lot of value. Going through, let's say, the succession plan. Like I referred to last night, I have multiple letters trying to get the administration to sign contracts that are coming up for review, to get employees on contracts before their time is up, and it's always pushback. So the idea that there's any kind of succession plan it just doesn't work in our environment the way we're set up. Because
No accountability.
yeah, there is none. That word is non-existent in Templeton. But I will say, a couple of good things about the report, that it pointed out something that should just be obvious. But then when you get your audit report back, that you create a plan to fix the problems. That's one of the new recommendations. I mean, how basic is this stuff? This just seems like, why else would I do it? I don't know. I got very frustrated hearing that, reading that, and participating in it last night. Because even the successes, now granted, they talk about free cash and the amount of free cash we have, but I don't know. I have my opinion, but I'll just throw it out there. If our administration is tasked with creating a 5% free cash availability at the end of the year. So they have to carry 5% of the budget as free cash for the end of the year. And they're coming in at 17%. I don't think of that as success. I just don't. I don't see how a 320% off the mark is success. To me, it's underutilization of your capabilities is what it is. You know, I mean, you got excess funds that you're just not utilizing properly. And, you know, that's where I call it slush. You know, and that's
Oh,
why
you can't
the
drive
state,
young, right?
that's why the state calls it unassigned, you know, cash. But that's basically, let's say, I think my gist. I don't know if I missed any of the points because I don't have it in front of me tonight. But I think that encapsulates what my thoughts were on it and what I stated last night.
I apologize on this particular item. I'm a little behind the 8 ball on it because the first I had seen of the report was last night in the meeting. So I need to read that report in a little bit more detail before I make too many assumptions. The only thing that I would note on here is that the DOR is only making recommendations. The town does not have to follow the recommendations. I know I know that the DOR is strongly suggests that we follow them, but the town doesn't have to follow them if we choose not to. And I believe that from the sound of the advisory committee members last night, the recommendation of reducing the advisory board to 5 is something that we'd prefer not to abide by, and it's not because it's because the data that was presented to the DOR seems that it was erroneous. And I again, only not having read the report in full and not wanting to form any judgments as a result of that, I take my colleagues on the board at their word and would say that if we wanted to recommend to the town not to accept that portion of the report, I would say we should do that.
Can I
But
say something?
go ahead, Ms. Bartolomeo.
You know, in 2009, they made recommendations that haven't been done yet.
Yep.
So one of the problems we have in this town is there's no continuous motion. Every board acts like their own little ball. And it has no comprehension of what happened before. And it just goes on and on. So they've told us to get a pilot that's a payment in lieu of taxes with the light company. That just hasn't been done. You know, there are recommendations that they tell us to do over and over and over. And it's like you may as well talk to the wall. But there are important things that need to be done. Because the light company, I love our light company. The guys are wonderful at work the lines. But they use our resources and they pay us nothing. Okay? They are supposed to give us a payment in lieu of taxes. That is not a big deal. But Carter wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Well, gee whiz, you know what? That was his job. And the selectmen didn't make him either. So that's one of the big problems we have. We have stuff that gets kicked down the road and kicked down the road and kicked down the road and just isn't done. That report was a horrible report. I felt like I got run over by a truck and it should have run over me again. I've been on this board. I wasn't on for a while, but I have been on for a long time. It's a lot of work. If you want to get along for a while, you had to go along to get along. You had to be a team player. That meant you didn't question anything that was put in front of you. But that is not our job. Our job is to ask questions and point out changes that can be made that can be positive. So I'm at my age right now, I will do what's right for the people. And I need you young people to step up because me and Will, we ain't gonna be here forever.
Mhm.
And you are the only, it's your job is not to go along with the governing people. Your job is to work for the people in this town. And so to demean us and just, make us weak is hurting the community. I was very upset when I went to bed last night. I had a hard time sleeping. Stress does not do me a lot of good. But being here, working with you guys, trying to make things better is more important than anything else. That's my contribution to the community. So that's the end of that. And what Bob is saying is absolutely true. There's a lot that needs to be improved, and
Mhm.
it better happen because we'll end up back in the hole that we're always in. We've been broke on an average every 5 years. And I don't want to see that happen. So that's that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
You may.
let me start off with what Mr. May said. He's absolutely right. Since 2017, the administration has been trying to end up making the advisory committee less effective. If you look at Mass General Law 39, Section 16, we're supposed to end up presenting the budget to the annual town meeting. Our feet have been cut out from under us. There's still some lingering issues as to going back when we first got on, when the transition after the 13 budget was done. I was on. There was some painful cuts that had to be made on the night, or just before. We actually took a recess and took a Friday to go through and make $125,000 worth of cuts because it was not sustainable. Number one, and there was cuts that were made from the floor because we had a line item budget at that particular time, and I agree with those. That's number one. Number two is that the administration, and I say the administration because I look at the selectmen at that time as well as the coordinator and town administrator is not doing their job. If you look on the town website, you'll actually see a presentation that was made by one of our members, Mr. Barrio, that basically for the second time that we went, the advisory committee went to the selectmen to end up having them initiate the budget process along with the coordinator and or the administrator. That didn't happen in 14. Why didn't it happen? Well, people have always still blaming the advisory committee for that, saying that money was stolen. Well, there's no way to steal the money because the town treasurer is the only one that handles the money, and even some of the selectmen should be aware of that. There's at least one selectman that has made it very clear in an email to us that he still thought that the money was absconded. It isn't. If he followed the process, he'd know. I mean, he's able to end up doing that and to know how government works. Now, the reason that the selectmen didn't step up because they appointed people that were really truly not qualified or underqualified, and when the accountant and the treasurer ended up we didn't have one for a number of years, and I don't fault the people that ended up giving us the information, but I can think of one particular thing when we did the budget. Because I still have that letter from the treasurer where we asked for the debt numbers. He gave us the number of $810,000 when it was really somewhere in the vicinity of $1.2 to $1.4 million. Oh wow! Look at that. That's about $500,000 or $600,000 there. Well, when you're given wrong information and you put a budget together, that's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, we learned a very hard lesson, and people out there still do not, to this day, think somebody stole the money. Well, if we did an audit on the books, people would see that the money didn't disappear per se in that time frame. There's a lot that has gone on, and the change over from cities and towns as far as the accounting system to Veda ended up screwing up this town from 13 to 16 because we didn't have good books at all. I mean, totally terrible books. We had people that tried to come in and they tried to take and make heads accounts of it. I have to give, and we went from a part-time accountant from, and I say part-time, which was 1 day a week, to part-time and then full-time because it took that much effort to try to go through the books. So there's a lot of issues within the community that are totally not understood. That being said, is that I want to give credit to Mr. May. Mr. May stepped out of the advisory committee for 7 months, and he was most effective out of the advisory committee. As you heard him say, he sent a lot of emails to the administration on how things were not being done. I can't applaud him enough because I would talk to him after I saw some of the emails going back and forth. He was more at that particular time. He was more effective if he had stayed on the advisory committee. I mean, I have to give credit to Bob again for stepping up and getting back on, even after he made that effort. Then you also heard from Bev on some issues. She's absolutely right on all of the points that she pointed out. They're absolutely true. There's a lot of issues that people are not aware of, and nor do I think that they have taken the time to understand what happened.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate that all happened, but I mean, you can actually see that presentation in 15 that was done by Mr. Barrio that actually said that the selectmen actually refused to take and do the budget, and again had the advisory committee do it. Well, folks, it wasn't easy. I was on then. I know what happened.
Well, we were $500,000 in a hole.
Right.
The only way that the advisory board never ever touches money. We can sign a paper that says transfer money from one account to another from our reserve account.
Right.
If I went into town hall with a gun and pointed it at somebody's head, maybe I could get the change out of their pocketbook, but I'm not going to get any money.
Right.
So the idea that somebody stole money is so false, but it's one of those things that people decide to believe it. So believe it all you want, but it's not true.
Mhm.
So you can believe all you want.
Yep.
We have not had a certified accountant. We did not do our audits in 4 years. The Division of Local Services, I blame them for letting us go 4 years without having our audits done. How on earth could they do that? But like you said, they can recommend. They can't break your arm, beat you over the head with it.
Right.
You know? So a lot of this is old history, but a lot of it is the same thing today as it was back then.
Let me just add a little more to the fact that, as you heard me say earlier, that we have to put an invoice in for payment for an invoice that we received. The only way that members of this committee could have got money is if they put an invoice in for $500,000. Well, guess what? Every week that the accountant receives this, the selectmen have to sign off on this as well as the treasurer. So that ain't happening. It never could.
$500,000, I would have been long gone.
Exactly.
Fair.
So, I mean, those things I want to point out is not possible to happen. the DOR did not do us justice. And the other point I want to make is I understood by Mr. Jarvis, I think it was,
Yes.
that getting some of the feedback, and if I'm incorrect, you can stand up, the other people that will watch, but I thought I understood him that we gave him feedback that he would correct the report and issue a new one. So
Yes.
I thought that was a very positive thing that he was about to do.
Mhm.
So I'd like to take in and letting my other member, Mr. Mason, see he's got his hand up. Go ahead, Bob.
I do? I didn't know I had my hand up. Sorry. I didn't have my hand up, just as far as I know.
I saw it.
It was up?
Sure.
Well, yeah, you saw it. Okay, Bev. All right. Yeah, ready? This is what it looks like, Bev. No, that's what a hand up looks like.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other discussion with regards to the DOR presentation from last night? Mr. Spring is correct. I remember them saying that they would come back with they would review the report and make changes to it based on the feedback that we gave them in the meeting and come back with an edited report that was part of it. So
It goes down in history, honey.
yep.
I really like that about what he said too, because that to me said that he's actually trying,
Mhm.
To put forward a correct report.
Yep.
No fault there.
Nope. I agree
No.
100%.
So when Mr. May was off the committee, he and I had discussions, and that didn't break the open meeting law because he was not on the committee.
Right.
I was talking to a citizen, and the citizen was bringing forth a lot of good stuff. Let me tell you.
But if it does any good, that's the difference. No?
Do we have any further discussion on the on item 11 on the agenda, the DOR presentation? I'm not sure that there's a motion to be made here, just that there was discussion had about the presentation, and that our comments will be reflected in the record.
The only motion that I would make, Mr. Chairman, is to request from the select board and the administrator the updated copy of the presentation when it is received from the feedback that they got. I think they actually gave us some good pointers as to try to get not only new members on this committee, but other boards and committees that there is lacking of membership, because there's been some other resignations and there's actually defunct committees that don't have enough members that they can end up operating. So I would make that as a motion to end up requesting the updated DOR report of the financial overview.
I have a motion. I have a motion and a second for to request the select board to present the updated report from the DOR once it is available. Is there any further discussion on said motion?
The only, well, it's not really on the, yeah, it is. All right, excuse me. The only thing that is relating to this that I would like to bring up is that during that presentation, they did mention that they presented the administration with certain tools that they thought might be useful. And one of those was the capital planning item. And my concern right along with this, us getting the update, is us actually, or our member or the members of the capital planning actually getting access to that. So it being a tool that the capital planning actually uses, not that the administration uses for capital planning.
Right.
That's my concern. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I believe that in addition to us requesting it, there's some additional things that have to be resolved outside of the report, in the fact that things were brought up, and it's up to the Selectmen Advisory or whatever to work out some of those issues. Is one of them about that is the timing of the BVA. we had
Yep.
gotten that by the 10th. I had to do a lot of lookup to find out that we from March till October that we had received it prior to the 10th. Now we could end up, if we work with them, that they can end up maybe making that a little later if they need the time, knowing that we have some issues that would be acceptable, as well as, I mean, this, to me, there was a more important issues within that report, such as the select board being on boards and
Yep.
and committees that really needs to take place. And we can't do anything about that. It's
Right.
it's up to them to address that and take action on it.
Right.
Any other discussion on the motion currently on the table? Hearing none, let's go to a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Motion passes at 7:55 p.m. Item 12, review and discuss the budget versus actual April 2021 as presented by Mr. Spring in the information sent to you. I know I have a couple of comments on the budget versus actual that I have written down, but I will allow you guys to go first. So whoever wants to take a shot at this one first, please do.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead,
I
Mr.
might
May.
as well. I got biggest mouth in the room, right?
Stop it.
Nope. Okay, so basically my comment on the BBA is I found it interesting that we seem to be at somewhere in the average, let's say 70%, 60, upper 60s, lower 70s across the board.
67%, almost 68% specifically.
Yeah. You know, if I'm not mistaken, 83% would be, let's say, a fair representation of this time of the year for the 10th or month of 12.
You're right.
So getting back to the point we're talking about, you know, we seem to be floating about 15% high, you know, right now. We'll see how that goes. But, you know, besides that, you know, we have, we're down low on everything except we're up a little bit on debt, and we were, a snow and ice issue, and there was another highway issue somewhere.
Yeah, there was snow and ice is obviously overexpended, but that's going to get corrected. There was a line in the library that's overexpended. There was another line that I noticed that was overexpended. If I can get to it here, I marked it. I know I did. Yes, highway improvement fund is very slightly overexpended. When I say very slightly, 100% 100% variance would be what we're looking for. It's at 100.94% variance, so it's very slightly overexpended. Those were the major issues that I saw on the report as far as over expenditures go. So, I mean, everything else, I mean, other than the COVID-19 line, which is, I mean, I assume that's going to be covered by FEMA, as according to the way that it's written, but.
You know what bothers me is
Go ahead.
damn supplies. You know, back when Jeff Ritter was here, when was that, Bob? In 14? We talked about doing a central supply closet. I don't know. You know, if you want slush, be honest about it, put it out there. I don't like hidden money. You know, if you need to pad the budget, fine, say I'm padding the budget. But if you, well, someday when I have nothing else to do, I'll sit down and add it all up.
Hmm.
But purchases of services and supplies, and it's just like, it's always so much money there, and it just drives me nuts. Because I think we could save a ton of money if we did things better. But that was something we were told to do 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
So one of the comment that I had about the budget versus actual as well, other than the overexpended lines, which I know have to be corrected with the exception of the snow and ice, because that'll get solved. My one note on that is it's disingenuous to the taxpayer that we're carrying only 147,500 in snow and ice when we had what would be considered to be an average snow year this year, or a little bit short of average snow year, and we were still $90,000 overexpended there. I would think that it would be, if you're going to say we are carrying a balanced budget, then we really shouldn't be talking about a $90,000 over expenditure on that line. Let's be realistic to the taxpayer and put what is realistic in that line. Put enough in there to cover at least an average winter. We're not even close. But the other thing that my comment was on is the community preservation fund, and that there's a lot of money being carried in that particular line. And I know that this money has all been assigned by special town meetings and annual town meetings, but there's money here that's been dated back to 2015, and I actually, now that I look at it again, there's money dated back here to 2010, and I would like to see the CPF with a plan for all of these monies that they've got listed under their accounts. If these projects aren't being executed, they need to close them out and release the funds. If they are being executed, they need to have a plan put forward to do them, because there's a lot of money here that's it feels like it's just sitting on the books, and it's being held for I don't know what, because that particular line is only 12% expended at this point this year. $409,000 in change allocated, only 52,000 spent. So they've still got a ton of money sitting on the books.
Some of it is that new project.
Yes, you mean the rehabilitation of the school?
Dwelly Farm is a project in.
Oh, this is okay. Different project. Dwelly Farm. I apologize.
No. Dwelly Farm is a project that has been kind of just going along. It's a relatively new project. Stony Bridge is kind of half done. The River's Edge Conservation Area is like half done. We have so many half done projects, it's not funny. Scout Hall, we got to get Steve in there and get it over with. Well, what the hell we're waiting for. And but the affordable housing, well, I don't know, but it is what it is.
Anyway, that was my particular comments on the budget myself. So
you're right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. May.
To kind of double down on exactly your point, the CPA fund, if you look just above that in our special articles, that list, let's say, has been ever expanding, and we seem to be carrying, like right now we're carrying about 482,000 left in that. We're into it for 57% this year. But the articles, even though they appear to go back to 2019, I think you'll find that they go back further than that, and that they've been updated along the way. We have the senior center, the building and grounds for Templeton Fire Center. But there's just a lot of money here in projects, things that came through capital, that seemingly are being log jammed in procurement. You know, because we're not spending the money that we're appropriating for these items, so that we're carrying now between CPA and special articles, just, you know, right around $800,000 that the taxpayer spent and is getting no benefit of.
I'd like to clarify my comments by saying that it's not that I disagree with the things that are in there. It's just that I would like to see a plan from the Community Preservation Fund to advance these projects and to get them completed. That should be the key point. I don't disagree with any of them. I think they're all worthy projects to be done. I just want to see a plan from the CPF to get these things completed.
And that's kind of the same thing with me with the special articles, the both. I just like to see the execution speeded up a little bit.
Absolutely, and I think that's the point that I'm also making, is that we're carrying 11-year-old money on the books here for some of these projects. Let's get these projects moving and get them completed. So,
agreed.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Will. If I could. Go ahead, Mr. Spring.
No, Faith had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. My Zoom must not be updated to the point where I can see the hands, because I don't see them. So Faith,
I'll defer to Faith. Go ahead, Faith.
Go ahead, Faith, please. I'm sorry.
We could send an email to CPF and to get an updated information on what's going on with the projects.
Sounds like a plan.
If I could, and that's a good point, Faith. And I was going to end up doing something on that idea, but I wanted to, excuse me, before I ended up doing that, I wanted to take and end up pointing a number of things. I pointed out at the annual town meeting the following accounts: employee support and supplies. If you look at this BBA, most of it is under 40% or less usage. I found that is not acceptable to take and end up asking for that amount of money when we could have used it for something else. In addition to that, you actually pointed out the only thing that can be deficit spending, folks, is snow and ice. That's the only thing that should be deficit spend. Now, when I look at this, and I have to take it in up. Our chairman did a good job of pointing out, because I was going to point out the same things. The library overspent. Okay, it's minimal amount of money, but by God, you know, if you have that amount of money going over budget, you can't deficit spend. That's going to be negative on the books. That's incorrect. Now, a situation like that, to me, is an excellent example of one or two things that the administration and the department head, for whoever was responsible for that, is to take and end up requesting an end-of-year transfer or emergency reserve transfer. Simple, because it's unanticipated that extra money was going to be costed, and it was not budgeted. The same thing with the debt, the short-term interest on the debt. It's overspent. Yes, it's under $1, but it's overspent.
Still overspent.
You can't do that. And like the chairman pointed out, Chapter 90. How the heck can you end up spending almost $3,500 more than what's in the fund? That's not acceptable. What are we? We're running credit cards here? And you're not supposed to be doing that. In addition to that, some of the same things that members pointed out under special articles, I started looking up stuff and I went, I find it very interesting. I went back and there's one I cannot find the information. It's under special articles. It's about 2019's Buildings and Grounds, Gilman Way, $10,000. I went through a number of special town meetings and annual town meetings, and I couldn't find it. Mr. May might be right. It might have been from a year before, but by God, there's $10,000 there that could, and the selectmen talked about this last night, about having to expend monies to fix a fence. Well, it's already there. To take it, it's Gilman Way, fix the fence with the $10,000 if it's truly there. So my first motion, and I'm going to have a number of Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
and I pity you because you have to go send this to the selectmen and
Hang on, let me get my paper ready.
Our job is.
I'm going to make a
If-
motion to
could I-
ask about under special articles, the 2019 Buildings and Grounds Gilman Way $10,000 because we
Mr.
could not
Chairman?
we could not find that, and to take and put that forth is to end up utilizing that for any expenditures that needed to be done on Gilman Way.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. May.
if I might, I believe I may be able to clarify that. And I'm trying to actually find the backup as we go, but if I'm not mistaken, that was done in a article in 2019 in the town meeting. It was the closeout of the Bajari Fund of $9,277 or something like that.
Mhm.
And the balance was appropriated to give $10,000 to recreation for Gilman Way. It probably couldn't be found because it wasn't under Buildings and Grounds at the
Went to
time.
recreation.
Right. It was just there as $10,000 to go there. To Mr. Spring's point, if I might expand on just that clarification or attempted clarification, Mr. Spring brought up a very good point that last night during the conversation on the Board of Selectmen, they were talking about the fencing and the potential issues with fencing. My understanding was that the fencing for Gilman Way complete upgrade was $35,000. If that be the case, it's my contention that there's $30,000 potentially available because $10,000 is here from Gilman Way. There's over $10,000 in the donation fund that $10,000 was to be used for Gilman Way. And there's the $10,000 that the school had pledged. So right now, as far as I can see, there's already enough money to fix all the fencing except for potentially $5,000.
And at this point, Mr. May, I was looking through the I'm looking through the BVA right now. If you look at page 4, line 951, special articles, 2019 B&G Gilman Waite, $10,000 allocated, 0 expended. I think
Yep.
that's the money that we're looking for right there.
That's correct.
Yeah. No, that is it. Yeah.
Yep. So it is on the books. It hasn't been spent.
Right.
Bob, if I could, Bob,
Sure.
I did, and you pointed out that recreation. I didn't even find out anything about recreation monies for the $10,000. I may be wrong. That's why I'm putting it out there. Is a motion to ask the accountant to take it end up clarifying the under special articles to 2019 building and ground Gilman Waite $10,000. And copy the accountant and the administrator, and maybe CC the select board. That would be my motion.
So I have a motion on the floor to request clarification from the town accountant regarding special articles 2019 Gilman Waite, $10,000 currently listed on the BVA as unexpended. CC the select board and the town administrator on that. Do I have a second?
I will second it.
Did I get the motion correct?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for summarizing that. That's exactly right, Mr. Chairman. You're doing an excellent job.
I just want to make sure I get these correct because these are in the public record. So I want to make sure whatever we're asking for is appropriately listed.
You're doing a fantastic job.
Okay, very good. Is there any discussion on said motion? Hearing none, a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Motion passes at 8:15 p.m. So we will put in that request to the town accountant to clarify that line. I'm not going to repeat it on the. I'm not going to repeat it on while we're on YouTube. It's but it is under. It's on. If you were to look at the BVA, it's on page 4. It's line 951 special articles. It is listed 2019 B&G Gilman Waite.
That's correct.
Mr. Spring, did you have another motion that you wanted to make at this time?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
The other thing is on that same special articles, 2019 Buildings and Grounds Fire Training Room AC. I looked at that and I need clarification on that also because I looked and on May of 2018, which is basically for the 19 budget, it said 3,500, but yet I see on here it's the allocated was 7,500, and I don't understand that. We need clarification on that one. I'll make the motion, get clarification on that particular item.
I have a motion on the floor to ask the town accountant to clarify in the BVA 2019 B&G Templeton. Hang on a second. 2019 B&G Fire Training Room AC. It's currently allocated $7,465.89, expended $3,065.00. Remaining balance is $4,400.89. We are looking for the town accountant to clarify that, CC the select board and advisory.
Second.
I have a second on that motion. Did I get the motion correct, Mr. Spring?
Yes, you did.
Do I have any discussion on said motion? Hearing no discussion, we go to a roll call vote. Mr. May.
Yes.
Mr. Spring.
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo.
Yes.
Ms. Curcio.
Yes.
And I am a yes. Motion passes at 8:17 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, I also have some additional ones.
Okay.
I'm only going to pick a few here, but there's many that we can end up looking at the next BVA, but this would be the start of our getting recommendations and looking into the finances. The next one would be on the special articles. It would be 2019. The BG Buildings and Grounds Town Common Trees is $4,680.64, and I'm really confused here because I see that amount of money, but when I went to look at the articles on that in 19, there was 12,500, and I'd like clarification as to what happened here. Did we expend money? And there's money sitting there, again, to the accountant. There's money sitting there that could probably either be used for additional work or actually put back into the monies for the town to use. I'll make that as a request from the accountant, again, copying the administration and the selectmen and us.
Well,
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
They did a lot of work in the common, and there's a lot of work to be done. There's a huge tree in front of Pam Scorco's house. I talked to her husband the other day when I was working at Gladys's Stone. is a huge, huge tree and the whole middle's rotten. So I don't know, they really need to take care of it before somebody gets hurt. I talked to Jeffrey about it. So I wouldn't worry about that too much because they probably are going to need to use that money up.
Well, I just want clarification, Bev, as
I know
to,
they did a lot of work.
right, because I saw some additional tree, you're absolutely right. There was some additional cuttings that I saw. This could be a case of the monies, some additional monies were expended, but it hasn't hit the books. So just like to get clarification there is if that if this is going to be ongoing, and if the amount of money, the bills haven't hit us to end up expending the rest of it. Just clarification.
If the money's there, they should get their act together and take care of that stuff because if somebody gets hurt, it's not going to be funny.
Yeah.
Right.
And
It's gonna be a
all the
lot more.
trees
It's
were-
gonna be a lot
all the-
more expensive for the town if somebody gets hurt than it will be to clear the tree.
All the trees were planted at once, so they all died at once.
Mm.
The common itself needs a lot of work. Of that salt we used killed a lot of the grass. It needs reseeding. It needs loom. It needs a lot of work. So
The reason I'm bringing it up is
yeah, I
it,
understand.
it,
I
it
understand.
came up in 2019, and we should be working to take it, end up
Yeah, well, the money's there. They
doing
should-
these projects.
Yeah, they should be spending it.
Yep.
They
I have
got
a
the
motion on. I have a motion on the floor to request clarification from the town accountant regarding special article 2019 building and grounds town common trees that is currently listed with $4,680.64 allocated. What the situation is with that particular line, if there's money that hasn't hit the books yet, or if it's what the plan is for moving that for moving things forward there. Do I have a second? And that should also be, that's also CC, select board and advisory on the response.
Second.
Mr. Spring, do I have the motion correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, a roll call vote. Mr. May.
Yes.
Mr. Spring.
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo.
Yes.
Ms. Curcio.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That motion passes at 8:22 p.m.
One more under the special articles,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, would be 2018 Buildings and Grounds Mini Split AC Town Hall. I would like this one to take and end up going to the town administrator is to get clarification as to why that's if it's going to be used, and if he says that it's not, I want if I can find out why we went to the to the town to take and end up issuing this in 18, and we have not taken any action. I mean, I have a mini split, and it's more efficient to have the mini split than to have window air conditioners in that building.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have that in my home, and I'll tell you, the last 2 years, it's been a godsend because my wife and I do not use window air conditioners.
I have a motion on the floor to request from the town administrator clarification on special articles 2018 building and grounds. Hang on, mini split AC town hall, currently allocated at $17,500. Whether or not this will be used, and if it will not be, what the plan for that money is. CC select board and advisory committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have the motion correct, Mr. Spring?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have any discussion on the motion?
Just let me just add one thing as far as that is to actually copy the select board.
Yep, it's CC select board and advisory.
Okay, thank you. I didn't catch that.
Yep. All of these motions have been CC select board and advisory.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Mr. May.
Yes.
Mr. Spring.
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo.
Yes.
Ms. Curcio.
Yes.
And I am a yes. Motion passes at 8:24 p.m.
The other thing is to address Faith's issue, and I was going to bring this up, Faith, but thank you. You laid credence to that we wanted clarification. I would like to end up sending this to the Conservation Preservation. This would be John Henshaw, as he's the chairman. And that let him answer that, is to take and see if there's a plan to take and end up in place to take and address the fact that some of these items have been on the books. There's one since 2010. I mean, the one as far as Stony Brook and using that money, I believe that's a dead issue as far as what I can understand. I know that the town administrator, the present one, has said that the past administrator was given the task to take and end up using some of his 10,000 consultant fee monies to come up with something for Stony Brook, and now it's been well over a year that was brought up to him, and he hasn't brought anything forth since even Adam has taken over, and he was working on that prior to that. So I'd like to take and address that as a different issue, but all the rest of them is to take and end up seeing if there's a plan in place to address the open issues on monies that are unspent for the different CPC monies that is listed on the BVA.
I have a motion on the floor to request from the chair of the Conservation Preservation Commission to address items that are listed on the BVA as unexpended, and what the plans are to expend those funds or to re-release those funds back to the town as necessary. Do I have a second? And that, on that, I apologize. CC Advisory and Select Board on that correspondence as well. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Spring, do I have the motion correct?
Yes, you do, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we go to a roll call vote. Mr. May.
Yes.
Mr. Spring.
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo.
Yes.
Ms. Curcio.
Yes.
And I am a yes. Motion passes at 8:27 p.m.
One last one, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
is to take and end up sending to the accountant, the administrator, and the select board on the following items that are a deficit spent, and ask what action, maybe to the administrator more so than with the accountant and the administrator, because the administrator along with the department heads could address this with end of year transfers to correct the deficit, or through emergency reserve. So the first one would be, let me go back to make sure I got this correct, because it's under, it would be under the library.
Yep.
For the deficit spent under the library.
Under employee support.
Under employee support.
Yep.
It's deficit spend, and also indicated that we cannot deficit spend monies, and we should be looking to take and end up addressing this through the use of either end of year transfers or emergency reserves, Mr. Chairman. And I would send that to the administrator and make sure the accountant is aware. The other one would be on the debt to being overspent and deficit spend.
The
Going
library,
forward.
the debt, and
Yep, the debt
highway improvement.
and the chapter 90 that you indicated also is to roll it up into the chapter 90. I think there was one other one that was two that you mentioned, isn't there?
The COVID-19 is negative variance, but I think that's FEMA, so I'm not overly concerned about that.
That's okay. That's correct. That's a FEMA issue, and that's that's something that we
No.
cannot probably do stuff. There's a lot of other things on here, but I think that's enough to let them know that
Yeah.
their advisory committee is
watching.
doing their due diligence.
Yep.
So I make that as a motion to on the deficit spending for those, to address those and take care of those per se.
The motion is to for the town accountant and the town administrator to address deficit spent items, specifically in the library line, the debt, and the highway improvement chapter 90 lines, as to what action will be taken to correct said deficit spending. Will it be via transfers, or will it be by using the emergency reserves? Do I have a second to that motion? And that will be that will also be CC. That'll be CC advisory and select board.
Also, the I think, did you say chapter 90 also?
I did say chapter 90.
Oh,
yes.
okay. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
That's quite all right. I understand.
Yep.
So
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Mr. Spring, did I get the motion correct?
Absolutely.
Do I have any other discussion on said motion? Hearing none, we go to a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
Ms. Curcio,
Yes.
and I am a yes. That motion passes at 8:30 p.m.
There's only one thing that I think that we should include. Under hospital cottages donation expenses.
Hospital cottages donation.
Yeah, I was going to bring that one up too, Bev.
There is no longer any hospital cottages. They dissolved them. They were dissolved. Hospital
Right.
cottages were in Baldwinville. It was a hospital for young children way back in the early 1900s. And then it also was a school for
Oh, yeah.
emotionally disturbed girls. So the buildings aren't even there anymore. So the selectmen need to figure out what to do with this money. They should close that account out. There's no point in carrying it any longer. So it's up to them to figure out what to do with it.
Bev, if you want, I can make the motion to end up
Sure.
including that is
Yep.
to take and end up the hospital cottage expense account.
Yeah.
Is to this would be to the selectman and to the administrator to take and end up that has to be addressed, because that actually hospital cottages is no longer an
Like I just
entity.
said,
It's right.
they're
It's been
dissolved.
defunct for a number of years, and to address that is to
There's
get
no
that
point.
off the books and address it with the monies. That may have been, Bev, that may have been something that they were trying to take and end up compiling into one account. But there's other ones that are in here that I see that I don't know if they did that, and they might have
There's absolutely no sense in having the account any longer, so they're gonna have to figure out what to do with the money.
They may end up having to take and end up seeking to take and end up going to having town council take and end up getting involved in this, and also go to the legislation to take and end up having something this type of
Makes no
account.
sense to carry that month after month
Dissolved.
after
Yep,
month.
to have it dissolved.
I have a motion on the floor to request clarification from the select board and the town administrator as what is to be done with the hospital cottage line in the BVA, as these have been defunct for some years. And there is money being carried on the budget for them, even though they have been defunct. That is going to be CC select board and advisory again. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
And Mr. Spring, did I get the motion correct?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. You're doing an excellent job, as I said.
Thank you, sir. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we go to a roll call vote. Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yep.
Ms. Curcio.
Yes.
I got that wrong again. I'm sorry, Ms. Curcio.
You're
And
giving me the Italian. It's okay.
I'm trying here. And I am a yes. Motion passes at 8:34 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, you might find it easier if you just use our first names, so you don't have to take and end up getting into that.
You know what it is it goes back to when I was in college and I was on student government. When I was at school, it was the Robert's Rules of Order were used much more formally there, and I'm kind of reverting back to that. So
I understand that.
give me a meeting or two, and I'm sure I'll break that habit fairly quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further motions with regards to the BVA that we want to discuss?
That ought to keep them busy.
There's probably many more that we should address, but I think that shows them that we're doing our job.
That should do it for tonight. Would I please entertain a motion to have the BVA accepted into the record as having been read and reviewed?
So moved.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the BVA into the record as having been read and reviewed. Is there any discussion on said motion?
Only that we need to take and end up addressing this again when the next when the month of May is done.
Yes, absolutely. And at that point we'll probably be addressing a different set of items at that point, because we've already run up a few of our items here, and we'll take a look at whatever else is concerning us at that point.
Yeah, because we're going to be facing the fact that the end of the year BVA, if we can end up getting it, we'll have to address that later on to request that, because the books get closed on July 15th.
Yep.
And it takes a while to end up getting the end of the year BVA issued, so we can end up seeing what's what at that particular time, and probably address some additional issues at that time.
Yep, absolutely. Any
You know,
further?
well,
Go ahead.
you know, what I was talking about the library, I want everyone to be aware that Jackie worked really, really hard this year. She's a librarian, but she also took on the food kitchen. She ran that for like almost a year. Did all the grocery shopping. She did an incredible job. So that may be the reason that the budget is over, but she earned every penny of it.
We're not disputing the fact that she did it. Yeah.
That's why, because as a rule, I don't think that would happen. This was just, she got saddled with so much.
Yep.
The only thing that we're pointing out is that it was overspent, and there's processes in place to address issues like this.
Yeah, well,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. We're not refuting it in any sort of way that she's done hard work this year.
Clarify the reason for it. You know, there's.
I want them to take and feel, Bev, I want them to feel, as department heads, to feel comfortable that when they know they're going to be overspending their budget, to take and end up coming for transfers or emergency reserve to work the issue.
Well, you know, as we had our previous administrator, department heads weren't comfortable coming to us for money when they should have.
Well,
I think Bev, that
an issue that needs to be resolved.
I think, Bev, that's been resolved in talking with the administrator about some issues, especially the upcoming emergency reserve thing that he's talking about. That's his commitment to end up putting forth stuff to the emergency reserve.
Good.
And the other thing is that by bringing up these motions tonight, it might also bring to the town administrator the realization that he has to go to the emergency reserve in order to clarify some of these things as well. So we might not only have those ones that have already been submitted in to deal with either next week or in 3 weeks. We might have others.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further discussion on said motion? Hearing none, Mr. May.
Yes.
Mr. Spring.
Yes.
Beverly.
Yes.
I'm going to force myself to do this. Faith.
Yes.
Math, and I am a yes. That motion passes at 8:38 p.m. to accept the BVA into the record as having been read and reviewed.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Spring. Item 13 is member comments. So I'm just going to go right down the line and let each of us take and make whatever comments we want to make at this time. Mr. May, would you like to go first?
Sure. And I'm just going to be very brief. I just want to say welcome to both Matt and Faith.
Thank you.
Congratulations to both Matt and Faith. And nice job to both Matt and Faith. Look at that. So
Thank you.
easy.
Thank
All
you,
right,
sir.
no, but very nice job. Very easy to understand, very easy to follow, and I'm sure the public will appreciate it. So that's it for me tonight. I've said enough.
Thank you, Mr. May. Mr. Spring.
I'll defer till the end, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
please.
Very well. And I'm going to force myself to do this again. Beverly.
You guys do my heart good. Thank you very much for joining in with us. You know, it is your town. I'm talking to the people out there sitting in the audience, the ones that care enough to watch. And if your friends don't watch, give them a poke, because you're going to get out of your government what you put into it.
Mhm.
I need people to show up at town meeting. I need people to vote. I need people to care. We don't have a big government. It is volunteer. And you don't have to get beat up every time you come to a meeting. It shouldn't be that way. But I do appreciate you joining more than I can ever tell you. Thank you very much. You did a good job.
Thank you, Beverly.
You're welcome, my dear. You too, Faith. Thank you.
Faith.
So the fact that we need more members, I think something that would greatly help is not just having a sheet showing how many members are needed in committees. There needs to be an explanation on what the committee does in layman's terms so that everyone understands, because they might not have all of the experience required, but they might have the passion or the time to give it to the town and us. Something should be put together, at least for the advisory, in my opinion, that explains what the advisory does, what they're looking for in a volunteer. And I think maybe then people would be more willing to volunteer, because nobody volunteers for something that they truly don't understand.
Mhm.
What they'll be doing, what they're needed to do, and the experience that people are looking for. I think that would truly help to get it out there and to get more people on board that way.
You're right.
Agreed. I think that might be something we want to take up at a meeting and maybe draft that document amongst the membership, and then get that out into, we can get that out into the town social media. We can get that out on the website. We can get that out in any number of ways in order to try to drum up support for both for just the advisory committee in general, but also for new members to join us and to do some good for the town.
Yeah, very good.
Anything else, Faith?
No, that's it. That's the biggest thing. I think just people don't understand, because they're coming from cities. They don't understand how the small town government works. Nobody really has a background in it these days. It's a very small niche. But other people who are passionate about the town, who want to learn more about their government, if they join and volunteer, even if they don't have the experience to begin with, they'll get the experience by showing up to the meetings, by participating, by being active. And there's just some sort of disconnect between being a homeowner in a small town and actually learning the processes of being the taxpayer and understanding what those taxes get you. There's not enough education, and there needs to be more. I just love to see that for the new residents.
I 100% agree, and we have a lot of new residents, because I know I drive around town and I see houses going up all over the place. So we need to bring those people in and get them active and involved in the community as well. And this is one way to do it. So thank you. My only comments this evening are thank you to all of you for good, intelligent, and discussion on everything that we discussed this evening. It was a I appreciate your confidence in me to hold the chairman position for at least until we get to the next organization meeting, and then we can continue from there. But thank you for all your thoughts. Thank you for good, intelligent discussion, and I look forward to hopefully doing some good for the town of Templeton with this group. So thank you very much, everyone, for everything this evening. And please bear with me as we go forward. I will get better at this. I'm remembering how to do this from about 23 years ago, so it's going to take a little time. It's going to take a little time for me to get there. So,
Just
You're
fine.
doing great.
thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you
Yes.
didn't give me my opportunity for
Oh, I
comment.
apologize, Mr. Spring. That's right. You deferred. Please go ahead.
Right now, I'm sitting here beaming very much that my approaching you to end up getting on this committee after the annual town meeting was, to me, my boss also had already talked to you before I could come up, and I could tell from the discussions and the comments that you were making at annual town meeting that you would become a valuable member of this community and to the advisory committee. And I want to applaud you. And I wholeheartedly think I made a very good decision on approaching you, and having you volunteer was beyond expectations. Let me tell you that. I can't applaud you enough for actually stepping up and taking, and helping us out here. The other thing is that, as you know, that I've been on quite a while. Faith, I know you're scribe for this evening. There is a process in place. If you have questions, all you have to do is give me a call or whatever. I would be happy to end up helping you along with that. It doesn't have to be details. All it has to do is hit the highlights of any discussion that we had. And there was a process of showing who the members are, and if there's guests or whatever. And we'll probably have to address that at the next meeting, because we'll have the VSO there. The other thing, Mr. Chairman, as I said earlier, I will do whatever I need to end up helping you out to understand the process, to end up doing what we need to end up going forth, of getting the minutes put on the My Town Government. We can talk about that particular process offline to end up doing that. And I think that needs to also go forward, and we can end up doing that. There's another thing. There's another thing about if we end up getting to the fact that we end up going to the town having our meetings in the meeting room at town hall. There is keys for access to that. There's keys to access the meeting room, and there's actually a key to access down into the basement. So everybody knows there is a filing cabinet that the advisory committee has in there, and I'm going to make a presentation at some point to whatever chairman, and I would end up going downstairs and actually showing them where it is, and I want to have that in so that he's aware of what some of the history is. And I can't say enough that I am more than pleased as the senior member of this committee to end up having all you wonderful people on. Thank you. And I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And I'll second it.
I have a motion to adjourn and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion on said motion?
No.
Well, it's early yet, and no.
Oh my, hearing none, Mr. May, Bob,
Yes, thank
Will.
you, Matt.
Yes.
Bev,
Yes.
Faith,
Yes.
and I am a yes. I adjourn the meeting as of 8:48 p.m.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Thank you,
Nice job.
everyone, and have a wonderful night. And Will, I'll be in contact this week.